By the summer of 1944, it was clear that Japan was in serious trouble. Its cities were being turned to rubble by almost daily super fortress raids, and U.S. submarines were taking a devastating toll of Japan's merchant navy, cutting it off from essential war materiel. Senior military commanders began to seek ever more desperate solutions to regain the lead. The Kaiten weapon was born out of this desperation. It was a 40-kilometer range underwater missile with an advanced guidance system. Imperial Navy High Command believed the weapon would shift the tide of war in their favor. What made this weapon unusual was that its guidance system consisted of a man sitting inside the missile. On the night of November 20th, 1944, two Japanese submarines moved stealthily eastward towards Ulithi in the Caroline Islands. Ulithi had been captured from the Japanese and converted in less than 3 months into a massive naval base. The vast lagoon and its 40-odd islands, which measured more than 24 miles long and 22 miles wide, had several anchorages, pontoon piers, and depots that supplied and repaired U.S. warships between campaigns and invasions. U.S. destroyers equipped with sophisticated sonar hydrophones monitored the entrances, and radar swept the sky and the sea. But a combination of luck and skill allowed the Japanese subs to approach undetected. Through their periscopes, the captains had seen several tankers and transports and at least one large cruiser enter the lagoon. When I-47 was as close as Lieutenant Commander Genji Orita dared, he signaled the engines to stop. In addition to the sub's 100-man crew, Lieutenant Sekio Nishina, one of the original designers and test pilots, led 4 young volunteers for the historic launch of the new weapon. The 4 pilots paused to offer prayers at the sub's little Shinto shrine, then left messages, poems, and mementos to be delivered to their families. They donned black jumpsuits, carried a short ceremonial sword, and tied a white silk hachimaki emblazoned with the imperial rising sun to their forehead. 4 Kaitens, each with a 1,500-pound warhead and measuring 48 feet long by 3 feet in diameter, were shackled on wooden cradles on the sub's deck. Lieutenant Nishina and his fellow Kaiten pilots would be the first to deliver the blow that would secure Japan's safety. Nishina watched as a crewman opened a hatch specifically built into the sub's upper hull, allowing direct access into the Kaiten and eliminating the need to surface in enemy waters to launch. Nishina slipped up the tiny access shaft and into the cramped chamber, sitting in the canvas seat behind a simple control panel. When he was secure inside, he closed the hatch beneath him. A battery-powered lamp would provide illumination for viewing the instrument panel. The interior was stuffy and humid, smelling of oil, peroxide, salt water, and recent welding. The cockpit had adequate oxygen for at least half an hour. Sodium peroxide filters, an antiquated precursor to the technology employed in manned spacecraft a generation later, were used to purify the air. The pilot would start the engine after completing his inspections, and as the Kaiten departed from its wooden cradle, it would gently rock while making a few clanks and bumps. No matter what happened, from this point on, the pilot was doomed to die because the hatches could only be opened from the outside, and there was no way to rejoin the Kaiten to the submarine. There was a self-destruct lever in case of capture, or to avoid a protracted death at the bottom of the ocean. Nishina examined the periscope to ensure he was clear before fully activating the motor. With a deep thrumming, the 550 horsepower engine roared to life. Nishina was moving at around 15 knots as he took his bearings from the gyroscope and headed away. From that point on, nothing is known for certain, but Nishina's only thought would have been on his mission. With a maximum range of nearly 40 miles, he could reach anywhere in the vast naval base, packed full of enemy ships. The 2 mother submarines, I-47 and I-36, had reached a favorable launch point without being detected. Due to mechanical difficulties, the submarines could only launch 4 of the 8 Kaitens on board. One sank while the other 3 made it into the lagoon, their pilots vowing to die for Japan and their emperor. Inside the atoll, the pilots would have surfaced to use their periscopes to choose a suitable target, then take their bearings and range to the target ship. This was when the Kaiten was most likely to be spotted by radar. After arming the warhead, the pilot dove and headed towards his target at maximum speed. The destroyer case detected and rammed one of the Kaitens, while it is believed that another succumbed to depth charging, as numerous destroyers and patrol vessels dropped hundreds of depth charges, turning the lagoon into a boiling cauldron of foam. Only one Kaiten fulfilled its mission by striking a ship. Whether Nishina had piloted this Kaiten can never be confirmed, but he was the most experienced Kaiten pilot. The fleet oiler USS Mississauga, loaded with volatile aviation fuel, was hit and exploded in flames, killing 63 of its crew. I-47 could only estimate success by listening for the detonations and monitoring the size of the explosion after the attack. The ferocity of the Mississauga's destruction gave the impression of a much larger number of ships sunk. On Radio Tokyo, the attack was a roaring success. Tokyo Rose announced that 2 big battleships had been sunk, with a carrier and a cruiser damaged. The literal translation of the word Kaiten is turning the heavens. And after the attack on Ulyth, the Japanese Naval High Command believed that they had a weapon that would indeed turn the heavens in their favor. With this apparent success, the Ulythi attack was the first of 10 Kaiten campaigns launched before the end of the war. Kaiten research began in February 1944, with the first prototype being produced 5 months later. On August 1st, 1944, an order for 100 units was placed, with a total of over 1,000 planned. Ozushima Island, located in the inland sea, served as a training and testing facility. The base was outfitted with cranes, launch ramps, and a large shallow bay for testing and practice runs. Kaiten pilots were all well-educated volunteers aged 17 to 28. Training was hazardous, with 15 personnel killed in accidents during testing and training. Kaitens were developed to be launched from the deck of a submarine or surface ship, but by early 1945, they had been adopted as a coastal defense weapon, with multiple coastal sites constructed to protect Japan from the expected invasion. In practice, only the submarine delivery system was ever used in combat. 21 specially modified Kaiten-equipped submarines would be completed by the end of the war. By late 1944, the United States had developed more sophisticated submarine detecting equipment, and its enhanced sub-killer weapons like the Mark 24 acoustic homing, aerial torpedo, and the Hedgehog, a ship-launched mortar with 24 barrels, were severely crippling Japanese submarine operations. Kaitens had a shallow crush depth, which limited the diving depth of the host submarine that transported them into battle. This is one of several factors blamed for the very poor survival rate of submarines using them, with 8 Kaiten carrying submarines being lost for the sinking of only 3 enemy ships by Kaiten strike. While the concept had great potential in theory, it failed miserably in practice. Technical challenges, detection by enemy forces, and the sheer complexity of piloting a torpedo all contributed to limiting its success.
If you liked this video, there are many similar high-quality videos on my channel.